Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where once again a strange headline comes out of Marvel, this time literally. And we once again are left to ask ourselves, what are they thinking over at Marvel, as it becomes harder and harder to simply trust a company that we had no problem trusting before. Who knows, maybe this will all work out. Maybe they'll find the perfect Ant-Man director to replace Edgar Wright, who it's becoming clear, as I talked about earlier this week, bailed on Ant-Man because he was so upset with the way the script was being handled via Marvel and also, therefore, Disney. And maybe the way Strange is coming together will work out. Maybe we'll fast forward to whenever the film is being released and say to ourselves, that was a good idea, Marvel. But I think that it's coming together so strangely that nobody can fault us, the fans, for having a hard time being true believers when it comes to the Doctor Strange movie that Marvel Studios is envisioning. And who knows, maybe this all was rushed to try and get it out there as another headline to shift focus away from Ant-Man. We'll never know for sure. Maybe we will. Maybe someone will write a tell-all book about these suddenly tumultuous times at Marvel Studios. Maybe that'll be the hallmark of Phase 3, a real cowboy ride, by the seat of their pants to try and have this thing come together, which is so strange because Marvel's usually so meticulously well-planned and they have such a great relationship with their talent. Or is that all in the past? But anyway, let's talk about how this Doctor Strange movie is coming together. Who got the gig? Scott Derrickson. A number of you wrote to me about this late last night when the news broke, and I think a lot of us were like, who? And because it's such a small name to choose for this apparently big studio picture. Based on the choice of Scott Derrickson, it leads me to believe this will be perhaps Marvel Studios' first low-budget film. And also, apparently, it's going to be a horror movie, because let's take a look at Scott Derrickson's resume. He starts out with The Exorcism of Emily Rose, a pretty well-made exorcism film. It came out towards the beginning of the exorcism trend. Then he parlayed that into a big gig at Hollywood, The Day the Earth Stood Still remake with Keanu Reeves and Jaden Smith. Now, of course, I think right there it's like, who would hire that guy again for a big budget movie? He clearly doesn't know what he's doing. And The Day the Earth Stood Still was also fantastic source material. But he continues to work by rebooting his career through Jason Blum and with Sinister. That's the Ethan Hawke film, which did quite well. Some people liked it, some people really didn't like it though. Very mixed reactions, but at the box office it was a winner. Very low budget. People are saying he did a lot of his research to make sure all the occult things that were in the film were true. So that could be nice for Doctor Strange. But then again, Doctor Strange is a comic book character. He doesn't need to be rooted in reality. He just needs to have a good movie. And also that's an older actor lead, so that might be nice. And also his next film coming up is Deliver Us from Evil, the Eric Bana film about a military personnel also dealing with exorcisms. I think, yes, Deliver Us from Evil, it's based on the prayer and everything. Some of you have asked me to review that trailer. I'm a little horror movied out, but I think, right now I'll tell you that I think it looks only medium. But again, the reason I bring it up, not only because it's his latest film coming out, but again, it's an older lead. Eric Bana, Ethan Hawke, would one of them maybe be Doctor Strange? No, wait until you hear who Marvel has planned. Then we'll circle back to Scott Derrickson. The rumor is that Marvel would like to see Jared Leto as Doctor Strange, who I think could probably do something very Johnny Depp-like with the role. If you're looking for an inexpensive, yet still anointed with an Oscar actor, I don't even think Johnny Depp has an Oscar now, come to think of it. I'm sorry, I don't know that off the top of my head, but I don't believe he does, which is very interesting. So I guess they're like, well, he doesn't have the box office of Johnny Depp, but he's our critical darling Johnny Depp, which could be a very interesting development. But that's who they're apparently thinking would be a good choice for the role. I don't agree. I think that Jared Leto, you're going with kind of like a punk rock Johnny Depp version of the character rather than the comic book version of the character. He's a renowned surgeon, with a bad attitude, he hurts his hands and then he becomes almost like a mystical surgeon, and becomes a better person, and he has this assistant Wong, and I think really a good comic. I've done my own casting video for Doctor Strange. I'll put a link to it at the end of this episode, and I believe I recommend a comic there that you should read. It's a great Doctor Strange miniseries. I'll put the link in the video description as to where you can find it. It's with him and the Night Nurse. I believe it's written by Brian K. Vaughan, of course, of Saga and Why the Last Man fame. I think it's a great example of a good Doctor Strange comic, and also a great example of how Jared Leto and Scott Derrickson maybe aren't the best choices for this movie. But, I mean, maybe it'll be something interesting that they come up with, but I don't think it'll be the Doctor Strange that we know and love. It'll be, I think, probably, perhaps, well, we haven't seen Ant-Man yet, but maybe that's another hallmark of Phase 3. Huge departure from the source material, which has not been Marvel's game plan to date. Now, one of the things I wanted to say about Scott Derrickson, I want to circle back to him, as I said, is that this is someone that Jason Blum revived their career. And this makes Jason Blum 2 for 2, by the way, with directors. He has now Scott Derrickson moving over to Marvel for Doctor Strange. And then, of course, James Wan was his guy over on the Insidious films. That he helped get. He is actually very instrumental in recommending him to Universal to take over the Fast and Furious franchise. So I think that not only is Blum killing it at the box office, but now Blumhouse is going to clearly be a place to go, not just to get your movie made, but I think it's clear that Jason Blum is building very good connections in Hollywood. He can recommend you to a bigger studio for a bigger gig. And I think that's very exciting and will only bring more talent to Blum for these movies that, you know, I also did an interview with Jason Blum, a really great behind-the-scenes look at how he makes his films and how he's able to make them so cheap. I'll also put a link to that at the end of the video. And it's just really interesting to see how that comes together. And I think he's going, if you thought it was difficult to maybe get into the door now at Blumhouse, I think it's going to be even more difficult. I think the days of, you know, Jason Blum being easily accessible might kind of be over. But good for him, and I think he's a great producer, and it's always great to see producers getting headlines, or he should be getting this headline. Nobody's really mentioning that connection, but I think that Blum deserves it. So I'm curious to what you guys think. Is this a Doctor Strange movie you want to see? I know a lot of us were rooting for John Hamm maybe, but of course $1 Million Arm, maybe that was his like kind of informal audition. Also with Disney's, you might recalled, and it did so poorly that I think they're not going to put him with the lead as any of their films. But Jared Leto, he's not exactly box office, you know, dynamite either. I mean, even Dallas Buyers Club, solid performer, but I think his performance was undeniably amazing. I don't want to take anything away from that, but I don't think anyone's like, when's the next Jared Leto movie coming out? Where's that guy? I think even Matthew McConaughey, the heat that he has is more off of True Detective than Dallas Buyers Club. So we'll see what happens. Jared Leto isn't official, Scott Derrickson is. So I hope to see below what you guys think of the way this movie, not only Doctor Strange is developing, but Marvel Phase 3 in general. All right, it's a big disastrous day in Hollywood as we move to our second story. Another big headline this morning is that Jupiter Ascending has been pushed back. It was supposed to open mere weeks from today on July 18th, and Warner Brothers has pushed it to February 6th, 2015. As many people have pointed out, where movies go to die. Now, we've all talked about utilizing more of the release schedule because it's just too cannibalized right now in the theaters. Although I think that Jupiter Ascending on the July 18th spot had a pretty cushy position. And Warner Brothers' official reasoning for pushing it back is that the movie needs more special effects, probably to distract from its problems, would be my guess. I don't think there's anybody here who saw the Jupiter Ascending trailer and wasn't like, that's a risky move. And I think the Wachowskis have not delivered for a very long time. I know a number of you liked Cloud Atlas. I didn't like it. I liked Speed Racer. I know a number of you didn't like Speed Racer. Truth be told, the Wachowskis haven't had a hit since the Matrix films, and it's an unfortunate truth. And that's kind of what's going on behind the scenes. Let's talk about that first, and we'll talk about where Jupiter Ascending has landed. I think it's landed in a very poor spot, actually. You know, you would think February 6th would be a dead zone, but it actually has some pretty stiff competition. Real maverick picture choices. Maybe as blockbusters take over March now, all of a sudden, you'll see February be a new breeding ground for those out-of-the-box thinking potential blockbusters. So anyway, Warner Brothers is saying, oh, it's all because we need more special effects, we need more time. But then also people are saying that, you know, behind the scenes, the rumors are that Warner Brothers has been unhappy with this for a while. They're very concerned about the film, and they're kind of upset that they're saddled with Wachowskis in the first place. And they're kind of placing the blame on Jeff Robinov. And they're saying, oh, this was his relationship that he cultivated. He rewarded them and kept them in high esteem because they delivered the Matrix films, even though clearly they were unable to deliver that again. You know, it was lightning in a bottle. And I even feel that the Matrix films really lacked for quality as they went on. I thought the last Matrix film was almost unwatchable. Although I know some people who that was their favorite Matrix film. So you never really know, and I think the Wachowskis are true artists and I think they're a perfect example of why the artist, that artistic nature and persona, maybe doesn't always work so well in Hollywood when it's so pure. I think the Wachowskis have pretty much no business sense, which is very unfortunate for them and the people who are associated with their films. I think this is very embarrassing for Channing Tatum. Mila Kunis, I think this was going to be a huge step up for her, so I don't think it's not a huge step back. I think if someone said the new Mila Kunis film is delayed because it needs work, I don't think you'd be like, oh, that's a shocker. But I think that Channing Tatum, not a huge shocker there either, perhaps. But, thank goodness he already has this Gambit contract signed. So whatever happens here happens. He doesn't have to worry about it too much. Perhaps he would be happy if they could bury it somewhere and nobody would know about it. So I think that that's interesting that they're doing that and they're blaming Jeff Robinov for this mistake. And I think the Wachowskis, I maybe wouldn't expect to see them work at Warner Brothers again. So I hope maybe they have another studio they can go to, because this might be like the final straw in their relationship. And I think it shows that Warner Brothers isn't doing much to cultivate the relationship either. That, Kevin Tsujihara isn't like, I want to make sure I stay friends with the Wachowskis. He's like, I gave them $150 million and they basically flushed it down the toilet, or made art out of it, and what am I going to do with that? Although who would give the Wachowskis $150 million after what happened with Cloud Atlas? I'd be like, there's no way I'm giving you that much money. Here's like 60 or 70, under 100, and you can see what you can do with that. And you also know it's not going into salary with Tatum and Kunis, so at least they spent it on the movie. But still, very disappointing. So what's it going up against? It's going up on February 6th, and I'm curious to which of these 3 movies you would pick to see. Now, of course, you'll have Jupiter Ascending, now flashier with better special effects, apparently. You'll also have Seventh Son finally coming out, and some people are saying that that's another reason that Jupiter Ascending was moved by Warner Brothers to this date, to kind of torpedo Seventh Son from their old production partner, Legendary Pictures, and that's coming from Universal now. So maybe they're like, you know what, let's tick off the Wachowskis, let's give the middle finger to the Wachowskis and Legendary. But I think the people who will win the weekend actually will be Lionsgate with their Mordecai action comedy crime caper starring Johnny Depp. This sounds like a really fun movie to me. I only looked it up this morning, actually. I'll put some pictures up right now of Johnny Depp in character. And I think it looks like something, I know we've all seen Johnny Depp in character before, but I have to say, this made me smile. And so I looked it up just this morning and I was like, you know what, David Koepp might be directing, and he's really has a very, very, very spotty track record behind the camera as a director, but I kind of like the way this is coming together. And this almost seems in the same vein as Kingsman: The Secret Service, another, UK, action but yet quirky comedy as well. And I think that's great. I would love to see a couple movies like that. So we'll see which one does better. Of course, Secret Service hits theaters first in October, so Mordecai to some degree might be said to be copying that. And also you see some shades, I think, of Downey's Sherlock Holmes. But anyway, Johnny Depp plays a art dealer. He's also a cad and a rogue, and he's going to save the world, apparently. So it's like James Bond by the way of a bon vivant. And I think that's a really great choice for Johnny Depp. Although it seems very similar to this Houdini movie he's thinking of making, where he's like the Indiana Jones meets Houdini picture. And so I don't know how he can do both of these, but this one's coming out first and he's already making it. And it stars him, of course, but also Paul Bettany as a character named Jockstrap. But it's Jock Strap. Haha, hilarious. I kind of like it. This is making, as I said, it's making me smile. I'm not laughing out loud. Well, I just laughed out loud there for emphasis. But, I think this amuses me. Also, Jeff Goldblum will star, Aubrey Plaza. And also, I think Olivia Munn as well. That's a pretty good cast. That's a solid cast. And I think that sounds like a classic Johnny Depp picture that I'd be interested in seeing. So, out of Mordecai, Seventh Son, and Jupiter Ascending, sorry, Wachowskis, my first ticket would be to Mordecai, and I'm curious to how you guys feel. What would be your first choice for your movie-going experience the weekend of February 6th, 2015? All right, so that's the second story of the day. The third story is, do you have your The Fault in Our Stars tickets yet? Because if you don't, you should buy them right now. Because a big story yesterday was that on Fandango, The Fault in Our Stars is the fastest-selling romance ever. It topped The Vow, which was the previous record holder, and this is since Fandango became a website for ticket purchases 14 years ago. So this isn't of all time. This is since the inception of Fandango. But The Fault in Our Stars has now surpassed The Vow as the fastest-selling romance ever in the site's history. And I think that's very exciting and interesting for this movie. As I said on Movie Math, it is expected to beat The Edge of Tomorrow, which will be amazing. And a lot of this heat is coming from John Green, the author, and he's a YouTube personality. How many of you watched the Vlog Brothers? But this is very interesting. And so I think that The Vow opened with about, let's see here, 54.6 million. That was also, oh no, that's Divergent, I'm sorry. The Vow, I had the number one. Oh yes, 41 million. Sorry, I'm just checking my notes here. All right, The Vow opened with 41 million. on Valentine's Day weekend. So they're right now, at the beginning of the week, they were predicting The Fault in Our Stars would open in the mid to high 30s, but maybe it will get into the 40s if it's doing this well. Now, is it front-loaded? We'll have to wait and see. I know some people say the movie looks too sad to them, and also they've read the book and they know it's very sad, but these ticket sales don't lie. And also, I mentioned John Green, and they've been asking people who buy tickets, they've been polling them why they're going. And 65% are going for Shailene Woodley, whose Divergent, as I just noted, opened with 54.6 million. So, but 81% are going for John Green. He is outpacing Woodley is the reason people are seeing this movie, which is, I think, phenomenal and very good news for YouTube. So I'd be very curious to see where The Fault in Our Stars actually ends up on the box office radar. And you know, The Vow, of course, was so successful that it was a big one of the building blocks for making Channing Tatum the movie star he is today, that he just delivered in so many different genres. As you might recall, this is the same year Magic Mike came out. So everyone was like, Channing Tatum can do everything, and everybody wants to see him do it. But I'm curious as to who will be the big winner off of a big open for The Fault in Our Stars. Will it be Shailene Woodley? Or will it be John Green? Will he not only see the reason people are going, will he be the one that benefits the most from this open? I would expect maybe an open somewhere between The Vow and Divergent. I don't know how many, I think this is going to be a very female-heavy audience, although, hey guys, are you planning on seeing The Fault in Our Stars? And again, I'm curious how front-loaded it will be if everyone's going to see it opening weekend. But buy your tickets. I have mine. The app froze on me. I had to go online and buy them, like on an actual desktop computer, because it wouldn't work. The app wouldn't work on my phone. That's how many people are on Fandango right now buying tickets for The Fault in Our Stars. So sad for Tom Cruise. All right, so that's the third story of the day. Now let's go on to the viewer question, which comes from Emmanuel Okoye from Ireland, who actually had a question about Divergent, which is why I picked it, because it kind of ties in today with what we're discussing. So MDog Reads, that's his username, he says, sorry if I'm bugging you with this question. I've posted it so many times now, haha, but I really want to hear what you think. So MDog says, I have a question about box office performances and how they affect sequels of films. As we all know, Divergent didn't do incredibly well in the box office, but they've already started filming Insurgent, the sequel. I was just wondering, is it enough for a movie, a book-to-movie adaptation specifically, to just have that fan base, that potential audience for a sequel to be greenlit? And if it is, then what real effect does the box office have? Absolutely love your show, Grace. Watching it is almost a necessity to my daily routine. That's so nice of you to say, Emmanuel, and I really like the way you phrased your question. Very smart. BTT viewers are very smart. And I like that you said, is it just enough to have the potential audience for Lionsgate to go, I know there's money here, and maybe it didn't show up for Divergent, but damn it, maybe we'll get it for Insurgent. Is that what they're thinking? I think that as you might recall, they greenlit the sequels before Divergent opened as part of that trend and publicity that we talked about, where they say, hey, you better see this movie because we're making the sequel. Now, sometimes this doesn't work out. Sometimes, like, the Mortal Instruments, they said they're making that sequel anyway, but we haven't really heard any news about it. So I think sometimes they greenlight the sequel, then they have to ungreenlight it when the film just fails to deliver anyway. But I think that Divergent delivered enough that they can move forward, because they don't want to, I think Lionsgate doesn't want to embarrass themselves. Now, the numbers on Divergent, as I said, were on the line. They're enough. I don't think they're ideal, and I don't think this is the position that Lionsgate wanted to go into Insurgent with, but it's what they've got. And as I said, I think this is also not to embarrass themselves. And, you know, they've had having some problems with their stock prices, as we've also discussed here on the show, because, you know, Hunger Games is their only thing that's really delivering right now, and Now You See Me. But Now You See Me, that sequel is delayed. Who knows how long, because Jesse Eisenberg is busy with Batman v Superman as Lex Luthor. But anyway, Divergent, it cost $85 million to make. I think that also helps the series, that it's very inexpensive. And it made $267 million worldwide. So that means at the end of the day, the studio takes home about $133 in profit. And with an $85 million budget, not including advertising, they probably broke even or had a small profit. It's not great. Again, maybe they might make some numbers back here nicely on streaming, on demand, etc. You know, of course, these movies have a life after they hit theaters. So I guess kind of breaking even or doing a little better than that is enough for them, as I said, to move forward. But it's not great. And I think that I think Divergent is a special situation because it's coming from a studio that's cash rich thanks to Lionsgate. Tons of money coming in from there. They can divert a little bit to Divergent with the hopes of maybe building another franchise. Lionsgate needs to be, they can't be a one franchise house. They hop from Twilight to Hunger Games. And, you know, I think they don't want to just have one property at a time. A successful studio has multiple franchises going. So they're really trying to build Divergent, and hopefully Insurgent will be a little bit flashier. I liked Divergent a lot, by the way. I thought it was much better than the first Hunger Games movie. But I really liked Catching Fire. So if Insurgent can up its game the way Catching Fire did from the first Hunger Games, then, you know, I think that it will be a smart gamble on the part of Lionsgate and might pay off, you know, literally at the end. But this is, again, I said this is a special situation, Emmanuel. I wouldn't apply it to all movies, particularly book-to-film adaptations. And I think that you're just seeing just taking the whole picture. It's not just Divergent on its own. It's Lionsgate is a studio. It's that they have extra money from the from the Hunger Games franchise. It's that they're desperate for another franchise and that they've already greenlit the films, and they're inexpensive to make, so it's not a huge gamble. But for instance, you know, there's no such thing as potential audience once you get into your second film. I mean, you have a pretty good idea of what you're dealing with. And a Divergent can't possibly know what its numbers are in the ancillary market, which is after theaters, because the movie hasn't been there for that long. You know, Austin Powers, they knew the audience had grown, but the sequel came out much later to Austin Powers than this Divergent turnaround to Insurgent. So I hope that gives you some perspective on your question. I think, you know, there's no hard and fast rule in Hollywood for anything. I think everything is, you know, kind of on a case-by-case basis. And I think the hard and fast rules in Hollywood are of a more grander nature and also in scope. You know, they're like industry rules to like how you make a movie and where you spend the money, etc. But, you know, Hollywood, as we all know, trying so hard to stay afloat these days, they make some crazy decisions. Just look at what's happening over at Marvel, who might have their first cheap film. So thank you for your question, Emmanuel. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories, the viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.